Welcome, everyone. Um, we welcome to the 2025 Culture of Care Summit, our second annual Culture of Care conference, and relationship-driven leadership, the key to exceptional results. In this session, you will learn how to foster a positive work environment, enhance team performance, and drive long-term growth by building strong, authentic relationships. I'd like to introduce you to Jennifer Horan, the Director of Student Services. Jennifer, please take it away.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. And I have with me Nichole and Azza, and they'll introduce themselves in a little bit so you can get to know them too. We're here to chat about something that I'm very passionate about, relationship-driven leadership. How we lead by connecting with people, not just pushing for results. Because let's face it, success looks different to everyone. Would you agree? Like everyone's looking around and you're probably going to define it differently. And today we're going to zero in on how building strong relationships can actually lead to better results. So I actually want to start with a quick thought experiment. And I want you to take a second to ask yourself, how can I level up my leadership right now? So think, how can you level up your leadership right now? What's the first thing that pops into your head? Seriously, whatever it is, I just want you to toss it in the chat. There's no judgment. Go ahead and put in the chat how you think you can level up your leadership right now. See some good commentary here. Being a better listener, being present. Give you guys a couple seconds to put some things in the chat for us. More ownership. I like it. Very good. So I really want you guys to hold on to those thoughts because we're going to come back to them a little bit later. And Nichole will be walking us through some items at the end where you'll need that. So hold on to those, okay? Now, a lot of times when we think about improving things, we jump straight to processes and policies. Looking at the chat in here, I do get to see a lot of commentary where we're focusing on ourselves and the people, and that's good because really this session here is about what if we flipped that around and we didn't focus on process and policies? What if we focused on the people behind those processes instead? So Azza, Nichole, and myself really believe that when people feel valued and connected, they work better together. They share ideas, they collaborate, and they're way more likely to reach those common goals. It's about leading people, not just managing numbers. And honestly, that's where you get to see those truly amazing results. So we're going to get started by talking more about building trust and empathy. So Nichole, do you want to introduce yourself and then share through your lens as a leader why trust is considered such a crucial ingredient for a high-performing team and what are some tangible benefits that stem from it?
Thank you, Jennifer. My name's Nichole Salinas, and I am our Director of Student Reengagement. And this is also a topic I'm very passionate about. And while looking through materials in preparation for this discussion, I actually ran across a quote that really resonated with me. And that quote was, "Trust is the currency of leadership." So, what does that really mean? Well, to me, I think about the high value that I put in trust and how powerful, but also fragile it can be at the same time. Trust is really essential for teamwork and collaboration, as well as delegation of tasks, because we really do accomplish more when we trust the individuals that we work with, because you know that you can rely on someone when you've seen that they have delivered on the things that they've shared with you that they are going to do. And that brings peace of mind and drives motivation to continue to work together. And cultivating trust and empathy within a team really does involve actively listening to team members. And I actually saw that in the chat as well. But also making an effort to understand their perspectives. So you definitely need to take that next step. The team should be able to feel that their well being is a top priority. This is what fosters strong relationships and encourages open communication because focusing on trust is really a critical step to building that supportive environment where individuals feel valued and respected.
That's a great point. A lot of contribution has to happen there. But let's say a new team member joins and is initially hesitant to contribute. What specific actions could a leader take to help them feel welcomed and valued, ultimately then fostering their trust and loyalty?
I would say this is pretty common, especially when someone joins a team. They're really not sure what their place is or, how they can fit their approach or their style into the team environment. And so really it's that leader's, responsibility to get to know that individual. And that really starts in those one-on-one conversations, which are my favorite because that's the place where you really get to know your people best. And so it's really important to understand, do they feel comfortable opening up in large groups, or would they prefer to just share feedback in a smaller group setting, or even just in those one-on-one conversations? As a leader, you need to be curious and find out who they are and what they are comfortable with. And once they feel comfortable sharing feedback with you, and they do start to share that feedback, what do you do with it? Do they have a good understanding of where that feedback is going and why it's valuable? So that really requires a leader to commit to that follow-up with team members after the feedback is provided so they know how you're using it. And that feedback loop is really what creates that trust and welcomes more participation.
Yes, I always tell my leaders, be curious. If you're curious, you'll always learn something new. But things are changing as we become remote and hybrid and working from home. So, Azza, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Can you introduce yourself and also share from your lens as a leader what some practical steps leaders can take to build trust and empathy with their teams, but in that remote or hybrid work environment?
Thank you, Jennifer. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our session. My name is Azza Elkamil. I am one of the directors of student services, and I get to work with Nichole and Jennifer. And they both mentioned how passionate we are about this topic. So to me, when I think about this, I think the first thing really to building trust and empathy is knowing that is not something that happens overnight, and it really takes a lot of real and consistent effort from the leader. But if you want just some simple steps on how you can make this a part of your routine and a part of your team culture, step one is just simply start by actively listening during one-on-ones, during team meetings, but also doing something with that active listening and show that you're also going to follow through on your commitments as a leader. Being human and sharing our own experiences with the challenges and things that are going well for us as well can build that connection. And obviously being as appropriate as possible, of course, because we don't need to share all the things, but there are things that are relevant that we can share with our team members to help us build that trust. In a remote and hybrid world, it is really challenging for people to feel that connection. And so making sure that there's an effort and time to build face-to-face connection, not just to talk about the business things, but even just to say, hey, I'm just giving you a call this morning just to say hello. How are you doing? What did you do yesterday? And encouraging just among the team some social time that's not always just about, again, the work, but even game activities and things to keep everyone connected and together on the same page. And then finally, being transparent. Even when we have to deliver a tough message, tough news, people will trust us more if our actions actually match the words that we are saying.
Great commentary. And I know that in general, feedback can be hard for some individuals to take. But as a leader, how do you balance empathy with the need to deliver that constructive feedback, especially when it might be hard for that recipient to hear?
Yeah. Feedback, first of all, is we need to just remember it is very crucial as a part of something we have to give in order for everyone to grow. So the best way to do and give feedback is to focus on the behavior and its impact on that individual and their performance, not just on their personality or anything else that we may perceive about them. When going into a feedback conversation, we always want to start that conversation by recognizing the strength of the individual, what contributions they have made, and then when it's time to deliver the specific feedback about the things that we want to see improve, we want to be as direct as possible and also really give concrete examples so they know how to best move forward with the feedback that we're given. Now, we know feedback sometimes is tough for some people, so we as leaders have to be really empathetic, acknowledge that we do understand that this is a tough message to deliver. But again, I am here to support you. I'm here to guide you on how to get better. And most importantly, having these conversations in a private setting So this way, it is not a conversation to shame them, but really for me to say, I am working with you to help support your growth. And here's what we're going to do versus it being public and more focused on what they're doing wrong.
Thank you. Azza, I'd also like to hear your thoughts on conflict resolution and workplace resilience, because as you're talking about giving feedback, sometimes the conflict can come from that feedback, right? So what are some common causes of conflict within teams, and how can leaders proactively address these issues before they start to escalate?
Yeah, conflict doesn't happen at all. I'm kidding. It does happen, right? There's a lot of things that can cause conflict among our teams. It could be as simple as miscommunication. It could be how our work, different work styles vary. It could be our personalities clashing. And sometimes, and probably one of the most common reasons that are almost hidden, we're just not clear on who's responsible for what. Great leaders get ahead of this and ensuring that this does not become a thing on their team by one, really just creating a culture where there is open communication, where people can feel comfortable sharing the challenges and conflict that they are having before they escalate and become something bigger. They also include a lot of team building activities that are focused on helping people learn how to work with each other, understanding their roles, and making sure that everybody knows what is my role on the team, how do I contribute to the team, how do my responsibilities impact the team, and to be able to say, great, so now that we all are aware of what we do, we now have a fair and transparent process on how we all work together and how decisions are being made to ensure that as a team, we continue to run things as smoothly as well.
As a leader, how can you make sure that that team has a mindset of resilience in the face of setbacks and challenges, both internal and external? So instead of being a passive participant, how do they come at these as a team, like you mentioned, really thinking, I want to be resilient and I want to work together?
Again, another resilience to me, and another one of the skills that we also need to continue to build. It is not something that we are born with. We have to continue to build that through support and learning. Leaders, again, play a really big part in this by one, creating a safe environment where people can come and say, I am not comfortable with X. Here's what I'm struggling with. Through that, then we can help team members develop resilience really by giving them opportunities to develop new skills, maybe in areas where they don't feel as comfortable, better equipping them with resources to help the challenges that they're seeing. And I didn't say if, and when things go wrong, because we know things are going to go wrong, focusing on what everybody can learn from that experience, how to improve it next time, and also not forgetting to celebrate the small things and acknowledge the work that took place for us to get here as a team. Again, as a part of the work-life balance, ensuring that we continue to build a culture where people are not also feeling burnt out. So supporting team members along the way, making sure they know about the resources like the employee assistance program that we have. And ultimately, really the best way to build a resilient team is for us to model that ourselves as a leader by showing positive and solution-oriented approach to every challenge that we come across.
Thank you. A lot of what you're talking about here is relying on effective communication and trust built into the team so that people are willing to actually share their thoughts and communicate those things. So I would like to hear from Nichole now of your thoughts on effective communication and active listening. How do you know your team doesn't have a strong foundation of trust?
Yes, I was listening to everything that Azza was sharing, and I was like, these are all great ideas. And, it's important to also discuss when things aren't going well, as Azza mentioned earlier. And I will say a leader knows. They know when their team is not functioning within trust. They will notice that communication either seems strained or it doesn't naturally flow. So team members are avoiding challenging conversations. Maybe the leader is actually trying to ask those great probing questions. They want to know. They want to know what's going on, but they're not getting anything in response. So they obviously missed a step there. Maybe team members are withholding information that's really important that the leader needs to support them until it's already an issue. An issue arises and now they have to discuss it when we could have proactively supported each other and helped each other earlier. Or maybe a leader's getting information from someone who's not the source. And that might feel like gossiping, which is a direct threat to that trusting relationship that we're trying to build. So it's really important then that a leader is paying attention to what they notice. If they're asking for feedback and team members are showing defensiveness, that means that they may not trust that that leader has good intentions, or they might be concerned about what that leader thinks of them. This all points to a lack of psychological safety and a fear of being vulnerable. And so, if these misunderstandings and conflicts are frequent and if they're left unresolved, that is what is going to show that we need to focus on trust. We need to focus on effective communication and figure out what's missing in the team.
What steps could a leader take to try to identify the root cause of any issues that might be causing those misunderstandings and conflicts and lack of trust?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I will share some ideas, but I will say this is not an exhaustive list. It's important for a leader to know their team. And as they're going through these steps, they should be focusing on where those gaps in effective communication are. So, first step is really to assess the current communication climate. And this could be done by observing teams in a team meeting. This could be observed by one-on-one conversations and just asking team members directly how they feel, maybe what's getting in the way of them being more vocal or sharing their ideas. Maybe they conduct surveys just to get a general sense from the team. But the leader should be paying attention to how their team is working with one another and asking questions like, what communication styles are present? Where do those misunderstandings typically occur? And do my people actually feel comfortable sharing their perspectives? I know Azza mentioned this earlier, but modeling effective communication is key. Leaders should be demonstrating what they expect from their team members. It should be evident in how a leader communicates what the team members should be following day to day. And the leader needs to ensure that their message remains clear and consistent. That's what builds trust if a team member knows what to expect from their leader. I know Azza also mentioned feedback and coaching, and we need to make sure that we're also providing feedback and coaching on communication. The team should be understanding of, what does it feel like to communicate in a safe environment? But they also should understand from their own perspective and their own delivery, what am I doing to either contribute to that environment, or what could I do to better improve my output? And that kind of goes to that space, that safe space. Is the leader creating that safe space for an open dialogue? The leader is responsible for creating that community within their team where people feel safe. They feel safe sharing perspectives, even if they differ from other people's perspectives. That's how we learn and that's how we grow. I will say, remember, this is like an ongoing process. Azza said that from the very beginning. This is not a one-time fix. This is a every single day we continue to build that environment and build that trust.
And to put some thought into action here, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. All of these talk about active listening if you put a bow on them. So I'm going to actually ask you, can you think about a time when you felt truly heard and understood, and share with us what made that experience so positive and how did that impact your willingness to share and to contribute in the situation?
I will say this is unrelated to work, but the first moment that immediately popped into my head was an interaction with my teenage son. And the reason why that stood out is because this is typically not where I feel heard and understood is when I'm speaking with my teenagers. But I've actually been really working on modeling the behaviors that I want him to follow. So similar to what we're discussing with leadership. And I'm pleased to say that it really is working. Recently, we were discussing something that he was really stressed out about. He had an upcoming test, and I felt like the best way to connect with him was to validate his emotions, but also be vulnerable and share with him that I was facing a similar experience. I had a 4-hour exam coming up, and pretty much everyone in my circle probably knew about it because I was stressing out. And I told him how nervous I was, and his entire body language shifted, and he just leaned in. And I could tell that my 16-year-old son was actually listening to his mom. So this was amazing. But he actually asked me more questions and he said, wow, that's a long test, but I believe in you. And he demonstrated that active listening just in the way that he looked at me and the way that he demonstrated care. And I can tell you, it meant the world to me.
It makes me teary. I just hearing that my son is young, so I'm hoping one day he could be that good at active listening. But that's a very common thread in what we're talking about right now is active listening. So why is active listening considered so important in building strong relationships? And what specific techniques can be used to improve this skill?
What I love about that question is that we can focus on this in every single connection that we have. This is not just isolated to work or leadership, but this is really how we connect with people on a day-to-day basis. And I don't want to overcomplicate it. Simpler it is, the more likely we can actually follow it. So I would recommend starting with something that I call the 4 Ps. And I'll just kind of briefly go through that. So first P is pay attention. And this really does have to do with positioning ourselves so that the person facing us knows that we are looking at them, we're listening to them, make eye contact, limit distractions, like put away your phone, get off of Teams, like actually focus. Participate. So, validating their emotions, asking clarifying questions, making sure that you're connecting to the message that they're sharing. This helps you to know that you're on the same page. Patience. Let them finish their thoughts before jumping in. You will get your time to share. Sometimes that's hard. And then lastly, perspective. And I think Jennifer mentioned this earlier, but what new perspective did you gain from that interaction? Did you understand them better? Did you learn something new? Are we really remaining curious in our conversations?
Thank you. I'm working on the patience piece. I get so excited, so I'll definitely take that one. But I really appreciate your commentary, Azza and Nichole. I feel very fortunate to be able to work in a circle with you. And I'm going to actually pass it back to you, Nichole, so you can close us out.
Wonderful. So I did actually just throw a link in the chat. So feel free to either use that link to join us on an AHA Slides page, or you can use the QR code. I think everyone should be able to see my screen. So feel free to use your cell phone. What we're going to respond to together is this prompt. So using what you placed in the chat earlier and your takeaways from today. What is one actionable step that you plan to take with your team to elevate your relationship-driven leadership? And I'll just kind of leave that question and that prompt up as we allow folks to take a couple minutes to share.
And we know mine is patience. So mine's out there already.
Mine is actually validation.
Hmm.
I'm reading a book. If anyone wants a book recommendation, it's called I Hear You by Michael Sorensen, and it's very short. It is very impactful, and it's all about validating people's emotions and how it builds trust.
Thank you for the suggestion.
I love that we are able to see everyone's responses here. And what I also love is we have participants, as I'm seeing some of the names, from all different points in the university setting. So working with students directly in the classroom, working with students from an advising perspective, training our employees to be active participants and students, life cycle leaders, individual contributors. So it's really cool to see that these skills can truly build relationship no matter what position you're in. I see curiosity, active listening.
Like the open-ended questions ones, that's how I always
Yeah.
recommend people to get a little bit more curious instead of assuming things. A lot can be
Whoever
uncovered.
Oh, yes, definitely. And whoever wrote closing teams and email and one-on-ones, that's like definitely a need for me. I get distracted. I have squirrel syndrome. It is so hard for me to like pay attention if I don't put away everything. Wonderful. We have about maybe 30 more seconds. I hope everyone is also able to kind of take from what they're seeing um, from others as well. Wonderful. I'll acknowledge all the wins.
I see Jeremy similar. Celebrate the small wins. Those are important. All efforts count.
Yes, all efforts count. That is good. It's so important to keep someone motivated, that they know, that you notice
Mm-hmm.
that they did something, that they worked hard.
All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us in this conversation. We hope you're able to take away even more than the 4 Ps. Appreciate your time.
Yes, a big thank you to Nichole, Azza, and Jennifer for sharing your time and expertise with us. And that concludes our relationship-driven leadership, the key to exceptional results session for today. Thank you all to all of our participants for joining us. We hope you found the conversation inspirational. I know I did. And on behalf of the Department of Behavioral Sciences, the Culture of Care Summit Steering Committee, and the University of Arizona Global Campus, thank you again and enjoy the rest of your day.